Whose story is it now? Diana's, or the people who carry her name forward? That's the quiet question humming under every headline, every photo, every glint of sapphire and gold. It isn't just jewelry, it's meaning. And meaning, once it leaves the vault, has a way of choosing sides. For years, the public has read the smallest details like tea leaves, a ring flashed in evening light, a bracelet at a charity visit, a familiar silhouette of a watch in a candid frame. Each appearance turns into a message, and each message becomes a battle over love, loyalty, and legacy. Tonight, we strip the noise down to what's real, what's alleged, and what's simply powerful storytelling. We'll move fast, keep receipts where they exist, and let the symbols speak for themselves. Because the question isn't just who wore what, it's who gets to define what it means. Let's begin with the moments no one seriously disputes. After the ceremony at Windsor in May 2018, Meghan stepped into the evening reception wearing Diana's Aquamarine cocktail ring. The stone caught the light like a lighthouse, cool, unmistakable, and instantly symbolic. Whether you saw tribute or strategy, the fact was simple: a direct, public link between past and present, worn on a night built for statements. There was another link set in from the start: the engagement ring. Harry chose a center stone from Botswana and framed it with 2 diamonds from his mother's collection. That decision welded memory to the future. Every wave of Meghan's hand wasn't just a newlywed gesture. It was a reminder that Diana's story hadn't been boxed up with the gowns. It lived on, right there, in plain view. Across the next few years, those acknowledgments didn't vanish. The butterfly earrings appeared. A diamond bracelet tied the look together. And yes, the Aquamarine returned for select moments, a familiar echo that fans recognized instantly. None of that needed breathless decoding. It was documented, photographed, cataloged. If you're mapping motives, start with what's secure. The gestures were real, and the symbolism was deliberate. But jewelry is never just metal and stones. Once you establish a pattern of homage, the audience watches for what comes next. Closer, louder, and with higher stakes. And that's where a single claim about the wedding day turns the temperature up. But that wasn't the whole story. Next, we get into the allegation that changed how people read every sparkle after the vows. Then came the claim that rewired how people read every sparkle. A well-known royal author alleged that William didn't want Meghan wearing any of his mother's pieces on the wedding day, and even sought assurances from the Queen. It wasn't a palace statement. It was a reported account. But the idea landed with a thud. This wasn't about a tiara choice or a hemline debate. It recast the jewelry as sacred ground, guarded by a son who knew exactly what those objects carried. Why would a boundary like that exist? If you believe the reporting, it wasn't pettiness. It was protection. Diana's pieces aren't just heirlooms. They're emotional lightning rods. Put them on a brand new public figure, and the meaning can spin out fast. William, the careful one, allegedly wanted to slow that spin, to keep memory from becoming a meme. And once that idea took hold, every future photo of Meghan in anything Diana adjacent looked less like fashion and more like a test. The effect was immediate. Fans split into camps, and the press found a new frame. Gatekeeper versus newcomer. Stewardship versus symbolism. Whether you buy the allegation or not, it changed the lens. Suddenly, a simple wristwatch wasn't simple at all. It was a riddle. Was it hers? Was it Diana's? Or was it something in between that headlines would decide for you? And that's where the mystery thickens, because the watch story refuses to sit still. The photos are everywhere. A gold Cartier Tank on Meghan's wrist, the internet squinting at every bevel and link. Some see a style choice, others see a message. 2 things can be true at once. Years before the wedding, Meghan said she bought herself a Cartier Tank and engraved it. a quiet promise meant for a future daughter. Even if the watch in a given photo is that one, the symbolism still lands: time, legacy, intention. Then there's the other story. Diana's gold tank française. Side-by-side shots look close enough to spark 1,000 comment threads. But here's the sober line. There's no public official confirmation that Meghan wears Diana's tank in those moments. Some coverage suggests it, other coverage hedges. The resemblance feeds the myth. The paperwork stays locked. Why does the uncertainty matter? Because when a narrative runs on, could be, the meaning gets loud while the facts stay quiet. For fans, it's homage. For critics, choreography. For William, if you buy the boundary on Diana's pieces, every wrist shot feels like a stress test. For Harry, who knows the weight of that name, any gift with a Diana echo reads more like love than strategy. And just when the watch debate was humming, another symbol stepped into the frame. On a trip that wasn't a palace production at all. A simple cross pendant, a new setting, and the conversation spiked again. In May 2024, the setting wasn't Buckingham. It was Lagos and Abuja. No balcony, no military bands. Just Meghan and Harry moving on their own steam, shaking hands, visiting schools, building a new rhythm outside the palace clock. And there, against sunlit rooms and easy smiles, a small cross pendant appeared at her collarbone. Reports framed it as a piece once tied to Diana, a gift from Harry. A quiet line from mother to son to wife. That single detail did a lot of heavy lifting. If the wedding reception ring said tribute, the Nigeria pendant said continuity, not official, not staged by a court circular, chosen, worn, placed in front of cameras that weren't obligated to be there. The message traveled fast. Even without the firm, the memory walks with them. For admirers, it looked like grace. For critics, strategy. For William, if that boundary exists, another nerve touched. The contrast mattered. This wasn't a tiara at a state dinner. It was a pendant in the middle of an independent itinerary. Human-scale moments, big symbolic echoes. That's why the conversation spiked again. Not because the piece was large, but because the story it suggested was. It implied a private inheritance of meaning, carried into public by choice. And that's the heart of it. Who decides where Diana's symbols live? Inside the vault or out in the world? Meghan leans toward the latter. Harry, with his gift, clearly does too. Which brings us to the other side of the mirror. Catherine's path, steadier, quieter, and no less deliberate. If Meghan writes in the language of reinvention, Catherine speaks fluent continuity. She lifts a hand, and the sapphire flashes. Diana's ring, now hers, telling a story everyone already knows. William chose it, Catherine carries it, and the plot stays tidy. Duty, family, stability. No explanation required. Her wardrobe of heirlooms follows the same rhythm. Pieces surface at moments that matter. State dinners, remembrance, visits where the spotlight is supposed to be bigger than any outfit. The jewelry isn't the event. It underscores the event. It looks less like content and more like a covenant. This is the job, and these are the symbols that travel with it. That doesn't make one woman right and the other wrong. It makes the strategies different. Catherine treats the archive like a trust, checked out with care, returned on time. Meghan treats it like a dialect, used to say something new in a new place. For William, Catherine's method reads as safe stewardship. For Harry, Meghan's approach feels like keeping a cherished voice in the room. Put both on a split screen, and the audience decides what it wants to see. A ring shot can steady the monarchy on Monday, and a pendant can light up the discourse by Friday. The symbols don't change, the framing does, and framing is where the media, and the rest of us, quietly tilt the board. Next, we look at how optics and headlines shape the meaning before anyone opens the jewelry box. Headlines don't tell stories, they compress them. A single frame of Meghan's wrist can outrun 1,000 words of context, and by the time editors add the caption, the audience has already decided what it means. William gets cast as the gatekeeper, Catherine as the steward, Harry as the wild card, and Meghan as the disruptor. That's tidy. Real life isn't. The problem is certainty. The watch that looks like Diana's becomes Diana's in a tweet. The allegation about wedding day limits becomes a rule in a reel. Algorithms love clean answers, not careful ones. So speculation moves like lightning, while verification walks. Every time a photo circulates ahead of the facts, meaning detaches from evidence, and trust quietly erodes. Incentives push the same way. Clips reward emotion over nuance, and corrections arrive like whispers after a shout. A miscaption can harden into canon if it trends long enough. That's how jewelry turns into a referendum, not on stones, but on motives. William's caution reads as control to some, care to others. Meghan's callbacks read as tribute to one crowd, choreography to the next. Catherine's consistency is either serenity or strategy, depending on who's watching. So, who writes the meaning? The family or the feed? That's the bigger battle, humming under the sparkle. And it leads to the only question that matters before we close. What's really at stake when memory becomes a public asset? Next, we talk stakes. What legacy means when love, grief, and brand all want a piece of it. Strip away the sparkle and you're left with something raw. Grief, memory, and the risk of turning both into content. For William, that risk feels personal. He isn't just guarding a jewelry box, he's defending a story he lived. Boundaries become a kind of love language. Quiet rules that say, this meant everything to us. Handle with care. Whether you see that as control or protection depends on where your heart sits. Meghan reads the same symbols differently. Legacy, to her, can breathe in new rooms, on a school visit, in a candid photo, on a trip that isn't stamped by palace stationery. A pendant or a ring becomes a bridge, not a trophy. Fans find that moving. Critics call it choreography. But to Harry, who's the hinge in the door, the calculus is simpler. If it keeps his mother's voice in the conversation, he leans in. Catherine plays the long game. She wears the past like a uniform, never louder than the moment, always aligned to duty. That steadiness is its own argument, heritage as service, not statement. The contrast with Meghan creates heat, but the heat isn't the point. The point is that both approaches keep Diana present, just in different dialects. So who owns legacy? No one. That's the uncomfortable answer. You don't own a memory this large. You steward it. Some days that looks like a sapphire at a state dinner. Other days, it's a small cross catching afternoon sun in Lagos. The stakes aren't about access, they're about honesty. Say what's confirmed, admit what's guessed, and wear the meaning like it matters. Because it does. Ready to land this? Say, next, and I'll give you a sharp, thought-provoking conclusion that ties it all together. In the end, this was never about a ring, a watch, or a pendant. It was about who gets to shape what those objects mean. William sees guardrails as love. Meghan sees presence as tribute. Catherine moves with the patience of duty. Harry tries to keep his mother's voice close enough to hear. 4 people, 1 memory, and a world eager to read the glint as gospel. So, here's the standard that keeps the noise honest. Treat what's confirmed as history, what's alleged as allegation, and what's unverified as exactly that. Unverified. When you hold the story that way, the symbols stop shouting and start speaking. You can decide for yourself what feels like stewardship and what feels like performance, without the feed writing the ending for you. Maybe that's the real legacy. Diana as a conversation, not a possession. Timepieces will tick, Stones will sparkle, and narratives will try to claim them. But meaning lives where we place it. If we choose care over certainty, the memory stays truer than any headline ever could.